Lisa, would you shut the door, please? Good morning. Namaste. Good to see everyone. Welcome. So on Sunday morning, our intention is to cultivate a deep peace and a connection to the sacred space of who we truly are. And we do this collectively as well as individually, because as we learn the ins and outs of how to really understand the true self, we realize there's really no difference between the individual and the collective, that there is a unified field of infinite possibility manifesting itself in varieties of forms. And we are this. And so as we come back to a sanity of understanding who we truly are, we realize this oneness without a second, no two-ness. And so the approach to whatever we're up to in our conversation is to bring this into a clearer focus, a deeper experience, and an awakening where we no longer vacillate between the old mind or old perception that had forgotten this and had come up with a counterfeit identity to keep the forgetting firmly in place, and vacillating from that to the willingness to have the reality of truth dawn upon the mind again. We are cultivating this commitment, in other words, this unwavering vigilance to stay in alignment. And in the staying or setting the will and intention in alignment, we undergo the alchemical transformation. We undergo the total shift from the old self to the real, the higher self. And this is what's being, in many ways, pushed from the invisible spaces right now for us to hear this call. We've come to this moment, this cusp in our spiritual development to bring in a world that works for all, because there really is no two-ness. And we're having to recognize that we're in a place of making these inner choices moment by moment. Have I turned blue? Oh. Om Namah Shivaya. So we are looking to do this, like I said, collectively, which means that we are co-participants. And Joe, I don't know if you're in control of the blue light, but the blue light has decided to flip on. Okay, good. And a welcome to everybody joining us on Facebook. We're glad to have you in this space as well. And so this collectivity extends, of course, to you, that we are not passers-by. We are not to take a passive approach to this conversation, but we are the active participants, willing to have what we're discussing manifest for all. Okay? So, having said that, it's really something that must come from that authentic self if these words are to carry any validity for you. And so it's my intention as an opening prayer that I am not the one who gives this message this morning, that there is a true dying going on with who John thinks he is, so that the one who is truly here to speak the message may come and have the freedom and clarity of the channel to speak it. And in this place of dying, there is the bliss of knowing. And so that is the intention this morning, that we can all share in this death and rebirth, so that we can come to the joy of knowing who truly is the one speaking, who truly is the one listening, and to know that self intimately. Intimately. So as we've probably heard, I remember taking a class in college on human sexuality, And that phrase, intimacy, was broken down into me, see. So when we talk about self-intimacy, we're talking about you as the embodiment of self-awareness, taking the time and cultivating the sensitivity to truly and deeply look into yourself. As we're going to see with the poems of Kabir this morning, it's really the whole method of the great work is to discover what is already within you. There's nothing else to do. We've been playing hide and seek with ourselves. And we've been really good at hiding because the way that we hide, all of us, is by taking up this self-concept of the body image. The body image, the self that I think I am. You know, that idea of I am the body. Buddha in his earliest teachings refers to that as conceit. That is not who you are. The I am the body identity, as Rumi would say, is the mother of all idols. Because once you've imaged yourself, you've split yourself from the infinite field of pure potentiality. You're no longer in union with God. You're separate from God. And the testament of this separation is your body image and your separate self-concept. And in order to maintain that version of yourself as the body image, you must lack intimacy with yourself. You must, moment by moment, avoid relationship with yourself. Because if you were truly in relationship to who you are, you would wake up as the God self in this moment. And you would see only this in everyone. That's the game of hide and seek that we're playing. That we somehow become some other self, and then when we look out at one another, we see that they too are other selves, and together we collude in this cosmic crime of the great cover-up. And Jesus says in A Course in Miracles that it really is a tiny mad idea, and it truly is a joke. Because in truth, you cannot separate yourself from the infinite ocean of God consciousness, because you're just a droplet of that very ocean, even when you're playing hide and seek. You've never ceased having oceanness. It's just been so distorted and skewed in your lack of self-intimacy that you're labeling it something else. And in the labeling of dualistic concepts, it appears as if you really are separate. But they're just labels. They're just delusions of false thinking. So Jesus says in the Course that all of this really is a joke because it cannot possibly happen in reality. He says, but if you do believe in it, if you really do put all of your investment in the belief that you're a body image, a separate self, then the effects of that hide and seek game will be tragic indeed. It will really appear tragic. And so the world that we see reflected back to us with the wars and the rumors of wars and famine and all of the chaos that seems to permeate our news feed as we look at it on our phones is really an effect of that tiny mad idea that you are taking seriously. So when you're ready to end the game, you come to a place of being willing to cultivate this self-intimacy. So I would invite all of us to have that as an intention this morning. One of the ways that it's described in a metaphor comes from the teachings of Krishna and Patanjali in the East, that you like a turtle, bring your limbs into yourself. And what that means, pratyahara, this idea of withdrawing all of the outward flowing energies of your mind right now. Consolidate, turn inward, and draw in all of the outward going energies so that you can begin to really feel into inner space. Because that's where this conversation is going, and that's where we are to navigate. Otherwise, we are throwing our attention outward. And when we throw our attention outward, we're the separate self, the body image ego, trying to discover God. And Kabir has a really nice way of saying what that is like. With an iron boat loaded with stones, a sack of poison on your head, you're planning to cross this world's seething ocean. Flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. And the good news is, you're not flesh and blood. You're actually light. You're a droplet in the ocean of light, misperceiving yourself so convincingly that it appears as if you are who you're not. So by turning in and by raising to doubt all of the familiar beliefs that you've carried with yourself up until this moment, raise them to doubt. That's one of the 3 pillars of Zen. Great doubt. Great faith and great perseverance are the other 2 pillars of Zen. But great doubt is another way of saying it, the way the Course says it. In order to know yourself, you must be willing to question every value that you hold. And in doing that, you actually get to see that everything that we've bought into and identified with and have given meaning to is connected to our personality construct, the separate self. And that is the self-deception. It is the end product of hide and seek. So if you're listening without questioning, then you'll be listening from the personality this morning. And if you're listening from your personality, you'll feel chafed, and you'll bristle, and your feathers will get ruffled, and you feel uncomfortable and unsettled by what's coming through in the message. Because the message is an exfoliation for your mind to wash off the false appearances. Okay? So if you don't know much about Kabir, he lived in India. I think he was in the 14th century, 15th century. And he was born of a Muslim woman, very poor. But he came to self-realization under the guru, a Hindu guru. And so he's celebrated by Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, because his way of seeing reality was, of course, beyond all sectarianism and religious affiliation. And one of the things that you'll notice if you spend any time with Kabir is that his poems are in many ways irreverent. They shake us out of our false sense of nicety and morality, and they have quite the punch to them when needed. So let's start with this one. I felt it was quite timely given the current events. Of course you're exhausted and furious. You've been walking for lifetimes in the wrong direction. Look, even Shiva's servants and musicians and the world's great philosophers were unable to plumb the mystery of the One. God stays hidden in the soul while the world keeps brutally busy and people go on acting blindly, binding themselves in invisible chains. Everyone grows battered and worn out and realizes nothing real. And then night falls like a vast blind well. Everyone falls into frozen with fear. Illusion rules omnipotent, while greed's lightnings keep torching house after house, and desires rain down in an endless monsoon. The ignorant shake with fear. There's no help for their delusion. The people are cheated and abandoned to darkness. No one follows my teachings. Everyone's writhing in Maya's net. So this is Kabir giving that stark, harsh reality of what it's like to try to live without your God connection. That is the world you will live in. And we are, in a way, so insulated in the West, in America, from seeing much of the underbelly of Maya. We kind of have more of the glamour side of Maya that faces us and surrounds us in America rather than the harshness of Maya. But nonetheless, Maya reigns supreme in a mind that is brutally busy, ignoring its soul and seeking for itself and for its identity and its pleasures in the world. And so Kabir is raising the trumpet for all of us to recognize that there's really only two directions to go by. And one of them is Maya. The other is this great awakening. More along these lines. You're not human if you're not outraged at how humans treat themselves, each other, the innocent animals, and the natural, glorious world. You're not divine until you transmute your outrage into precise, burning, passionate compassion energy, lifting your calm, wild voice tirelessly to protect the voiceless, honor justice, make crystal clear the structures of fear, hatred, and greed, and proclaim the glory. Proclaim the glory of the Golden One. Kabir says, your task is clear. Given you is unshakable strength, and within you is the majesty of the noble one that nothing can destroy or degrade. So he's taking us from Maya's net, right? The horrors of the world, humans hurting themselves and others, and the animal world and the natural world. And he says, you're not human if you're not outraged by that. So that's a natural reaction, to feel outrage at war and brutality and inhumanity. That is the natural human reaction. But he takes you further into the great alchemy. Don't stay at the level of the outrage. You're not divine until you transmute your outrage. And then he says, you're transmuting your outrage. There's no other outrage that you're feeling. Don't kid yourself. We had a class on Thursday, our Course in Miracles Zoom class, and he says something very profound in the Course. He says that you're always only interacting with the self-generated energies of your own mind. That's it. So it's when you feel outrage over something, that is your energy and your image making that you're seeing. That's why enlightenment can come to you and isn't dependent on anything or anyone else, because it's your own energy that is being misperceived and misused. If we stay at the level of outrage, we stay caught in the net of Maya. So our call is to stop the game of hide and seek and to wake up to this true intimacy that we already have and never lost with the divine. And when you wake that up and you really begin to look within and cultivate this connection to your divinity and uproot all of the things that are blocking it, which one of them would be your human outrage. You must look into it and see it as your own energy and be willing to have this alchemy transmute your outrage into, he says, precise burning. What does that mean? It's what we were saying earlier. When you draw your energies from being dissipated out into the world and you begin to consolidate all of that outflow of your own self-generated psychic energy, you begin to bring it in like the tortoise drawing in its limbs. This is one of the angas or limbs of the eightfold yoga of Patanjali. In order to get back to your true self, which is samadhi, you have to draw in your energy. You have to stop dissipating your attention, because that's how you play hide and seek with yourself and get lost in the dream that there's somebody else responsible and causing your outrage. There's nobody out there doing it. It's your mental energy being misused and misdirected. Not to say that there won't be the forces of deception that want to come in and exploit the fact that you're ignorant that you're doing this, and thereby compound your ignorance and reinforce your sorry lot in the net of Maya. Definitely. You want to try that on? Turn on corporate news. Listen to the slanted propaganda that's coming out of, governmental institutions. they will be the voice of Maya and will reinforce the outrage at the human level. That's their function. But you put them there. You elected that for yourself. Only so that we can continue this self-destructive game of hide and seek until it hurts so bad that we didn't want to do it anymore. Then we can transmute our outrage into precise burning. And this is what is called in the Kriya system of Patanjali as tapas, burning. So he says in order to get into samadhi, you need 3 kriyas, 3 ways of acting. One is tapas. You have to burn up these false beliefs and these impulses that have you going outside of yourself. And then you have to cultivate a deep self-intimacy. Swadhyaya. Study yourself. Know how you function and operate. Know when you're in states of fear. Know when you're in states of anxiety. Know when you're in states of confusion. Watch your mind. And then finally, the 3rd kriya, Ishvara Pranidhana. When you're in devotion to God, you'll bring in the grace that once you become intimate with yourself, you'll realize that all of your fearful, anxiety, outrage states can only exist because you think you lack love. Even your very self-image as the body is a belief based in lack of love. I don't know if you're hearing this morning, but try. From lack of love comes all of your nightmares. Every single one of them. All of your outrage, all of your victim stories, every last one. But when you're ready to transmute all of that, you'll bring it all back to the projector, which is your own consciousness. And you'll have grace burn it up. Like I said, Kabir can be very irreverent sometimes, and so prepare your ears for this one. Son of a whore. There, I've got your attention. Get on the true path. Say the name. Say the name until you meet the astounding one in your own house. This, just in passing, I think is again apropos for the zeitgeist or the sign of the times. The super rich, the brilliant, the powerful. Kids playing with matches. No wonder, friends, the world is ablaze. And then lastly here, Muslims run to mosques, Hindus to temples, Christians to churches, Jews to synagogues, all with blind fervor, while within each body the invisible one lives, and no one even tries to find the door of his house. This is why, if you're not hearing much this morning, just know that you have to draw your attention inward here. You know, again, Jesus in A Course in Miracles is using Helen Schuckman's database, and Helen Schuckman is a Freudian analyst. And so Jesus can use one of the Freudian defense mechanisms called externalization. He says that's one of the main things that the separated ones suffer from in this hide-and-seek game. We are externalizing the holy as if it doesn't live here. It's somewhere else. It's in a mosque, a temple, a synagogue, a guru, a book, in the great beyond, but not here, not in my own breast, not in my breath, not in every beat of my heart. So you can see why we have to alchemize the way that we think. We are in this predisposition to avoid self-intimacy and counterfeit a world based on God is not here, God is not me. That's the starting point of the hiding. What if all of that was a joke? What if every beat of your heart, every pulse of your breath is God waking you up? Again, in the yoga system, they have this recognition that when you're breathing in, it's like an S sound or a sibilant sound. And when you're breathing out, it's like an aspirate or an H sound. And they put these two together to form the Sanskrit word soham, which means I am he. I am the divine. What if that were true? What if you stopped long enough this morning to let that possibility in a way you've never allowed yourself before? Not off to another thought, another commentary on what you just heard, or a judgment, or anything to distract you away from the immediacy of the intimacy that you have with your source. And to help with this cultivation of intimacy, listen to the words of Meister Eckhart. I could not bear to touch God with my own hand when he came within my reach, but he wanted me to hold him. How God solved my blessed agony, who can understand? He turned my body into his. This is the great work, the alchemy, the transfiguration into Christ mind, the yoga. the end of the nightmare of separation. According to your will, let it be done. Give God all of you because it's his already. You never left the ocean of bliss. And then in this great giving of everything that you believe you are, that you believe yourself to be as the body identity, in giving him full authority to have it all, every breath, every thought, every value, every memory, every relationship, every fear, every worry. You just constant surrender. As you do this with all of your soul's strength and might, you will realize he's giving it all back to you, purified, blessed, and elevated, so the two become one, but never lose the two-ness. You marry. This is the eros gamos of the alchemy. You marry. The soul and its source are one and distinct. Hence the Leela, the play. The co-creating. But you have to go into this burning and surrendering of all of the dross of false thinking to know this marriage. And with that comes the second great commandment. You will love your neighbor as yourself. You will see this oneness in all beings and not be led astray back into the bog of the hide and seek. And who is your neighbor? The tyrants, the victims, the racists, the haters, the lovers, the children, the animals, the trees. There's no one exempt from this love. And you will not withhold this love, because you know if you withhold this love from one, you've lost the definition of love and are now blocking it from yourself. I know, it could be challenging at times. It doesn't mean that you don't, as Kabir was saying, expose with crystal clarity the structures of fear and greed and aggression for what they are. You won't tolerate them. You won't elect them anymore. You'll see through them. And you'll do this with a loving, calm heart that doesn't get caught in it. This is how we're going to undo the dream. That's why Rumi says this. If God said, Rumi, pay homage to everything that has helped you enter my arms, there would not be one experience of my life, not one thought, not one feeling, not any act I would not bow to. That's when you come to the door of the divine within your heart and you realize everything that you've lived through got you to this door. You couldn't have been ready without everything you've gone through. You bow to it all. and then you go into the door. Here's one Rumi calls relationship booster. Here's a relationship booster that's guaranteed to work. Every time your spouse or lover says something stupid, make your eyes light up as if you just heard something brilliant. That might sound cheeky, but it's also carrying with it the right intention to always be love. No matter what is coming out of somebody's mouth. Doesn't mean you agree with it. It doesn't mean you condone it or reinforce it. But like he says in A Course in Miracles, you always are in the vibration or presence of honoring someone, seeing them, even if they can't see themselves, as the divine, even if they're speaking stupid stuff. Now, more along the lines of self-intimacy. The grass beneath a tree is content and silent. A squirrel holds an acorn in its praying hands, offering thanks, it looks like. The nut tastes sweet. I bet the prayer spiced it up somehow. The broken shells fall on the grass, and the grass looks up and says, "Hey." And the squirrel looks down and says, "Hey." I've been saying "hey" lately too, to God. Formalities just weren't working. So that's another value that we want to question. These starchy, King James English-laden prayers, or at least that attitude of, "O thou God, Father Almighty." Like if we get lost in the religious rhetoric or this impersonal approach, there's no intimacy. It's not that you're, not realizing who you're dealing with, but there's love. A constant companion. And sometimes you just want to go, "Hey." And to feel that bond. That love. To let it in, not to hide from it. So even if, you find yourself still hearing all of this through the personality, you could still say to yourself, "I don't want to hide from you anymore. Help me not to hide from you. I want to know you." And so on the last leg of the journey, along this notion of knowing, to be alone is to be separated from infinity. But how can this be if infinity has no end? No one can go beyond the limitless. Only in your belief system. This is only where the game of hide and seek is being played out. It is such a clever trick of light. It's a distortion of light through the prism of your belief system. And this belief system has an inner component and an outer component. The inner component of this distorted belief system speaks to you as if it were you. It's probably doing it right now. Once you gain a little bit of breathing space from that voice, and you can listen to it from a stiller, calmer witnessing, you'll realize that that has been distorting your connection to the infinite, to yourself. And it's this voice that usually is the loudest when it wants to be enlightened. It's the seeker. That's why he says here, there are no beginnings and no endings in God, whose universe is himself. Can you exclude yourself from the universe or from God, who is the universe? And then Jesus says, I and my Father are one with you, for you are part of us. Do you really believe that part of God can be missing or lost to him? Who's telling you this? Who are you listening to that tells you you're lost? That you're not a part of God? Who's convinced you of this? Is it true? Did you examine it? Have you looked clearly at what this voice is really saying? What is its end game? What principles does it uphold and base this logic upon? Now listen to this logic. If you were not part of God, his will would not be unified. Is this conceivable? Can part of his mind contain nothing? Vanity. If your place in his mind cannot be filled with anyone except you, and your filling it was your creation, without you there would be an empty place in God's mind. This is why the love will come flooding back when you realize who you are and who loves you. The world will never be the same again. He will make your body his. No two-ness. Just be willing to surrender every thought, every belief, every value, every opinion, every authority that denies this is true. And you'll reintegrate like the drop back into the universal bliss of the ocean of God's mind. Now. It doesn't wait on time. Now. There are no beginnings and endings in God. This happens now. Don't look away. And if you do choose to look away, look at the looking away and ask yourself, why? Why am I looking away? Why am I avoiding self-intimacy? Why am I ignoring the love? He says here, extension cannot be blocked. It has no voids. It continues forever, how much it is denied. Your denial of its reality arrests it in time, but not in eternity. If you believe you are absent from God, you will believe he is absent from you. Infinity becomes meaningless without you, and you are meaningless without God. There is no end to God and you, for we are the universe. And then finally here, the universe of love does not stop because you do not see it. And your eyes and your closed eyes have not lost you the ability to see. Look upon the glory of his creation, and you will learn what God has kept for you. So as we go back to this principle that we can only always interact with our own mind energy, we're all self-generating this moment in whatever way it appears to our awareness. I don't know what you're seeing. I don't know what you're hearing. I don't know what thoughts are percolating in your mind. I'm having my own experience. That's why he says in the Course, you can only teach yourself. And whatever you're choosing to give to your brothers and your sisters, you're asking to receive it. So all of that to say, I guess, is I'm becoming less and less fearful of opening this secret door and allowing this presence to become everything that I am. And I have to be honest again that when that intention comes, everything in me that still tries to tell me I'm John will marshal its forces and go to war with that idea, that possibility, that choice that I'm wanting. So there's a war with myself that I have to contend with. And I'll tell you, it came on really hot and heavy last week because this moment is getting clearer and closer. And the way it shows up for me, remember, I don't know how you are wired, but the way I'm wired is there's always something that I've not done or fulfilled or become in the eyes of the world. That John's feeling of lack must be met with something the world has told him is valuable. And if he doesn't attain that, or had it and wasn't right, or he failed at something or whatever, that belief can come on so strong and grip my mind that if I believe I'm John, I will not see the trick. There's nothing in the world that will ever give you what you need. And as soon as I, with the help of Lisa, as soon as I began to recognize that, and remember that my value and my worth do not depend on anything or anyone outside of me. My safety doesn't depend. My survival doesn't depend. My happiness doesn't depend on anything or anyone outside of me. Then I can see clearly and go through the door. It's an inner door. And all idols need to be left outside, including the mother of all idols, which is the counterfeit self. That's when the wars will stop for you. And you see a universe of love. Great alchemy is not a myth, it's an invitation. I hope this message brought you closer to saying yes. Blue bag's going to go around. Joe has a microphone, so if you have anything that you want to share, just wait for the mic to come to you. That way the folks on Facebook can hear us as well.
Good morning, John, church. Another amazing morning. And true prosperity is just sitting here and just being assured through the peace that has been spoken through the truth. And it's just amazing how I just want to continue because there is no separation from this moment to the next. So just to carry this on and just to be, and 14th century, speaking like it's today. So it is right here, right now. And you are amazing because he's amazing. We're all amazing. And it's just a beautiful
That's
day, and
right.
I thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Yes, great reminder. Every moment, vigilance until you don't need vigilance. Let's bless the offering. And we thank the offering. We thank the givers of the offering. And may all be blessed. And may this offering be charged to bring the deep effects that are necessary in shifting the mind from fear to love. And so it is. Amen. So if you are joining us on Facebook, you probably know you can click the link below or go to unityofstewart.org for your donation. Thank you for supporting our service. Anybody else? Thoughts, questions, comments? I have about a minute or two. Don't be shy. Okay. Let's stand and close out. And just know that we are carrying with us this priceless jewel of God's presence deep within the folds of our own heart. So treasure the fact that you are God's treasure. And may we know this love for all that it is. And as a reminder, the unity prayer. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. Amen. Course in Miracles tomorrow night, 7:15 in the classroom. All right, everybody. Beautiful Sunday to you. Thank you.